Welcome back on deynonmod. Today I want to propose you a video about
the assembly and magnetize about the Necron Canoptek Wraiths. This is a box that it's a gift from my mother, and I love such models, so I'm quite glad to have received this. And from the box itself we can see some things. First of all, these images are in 1:1 scale, so eventually you can cut them and use as a sort of proxy in the middle. So okay, remember that you can use eventually the things like something to have bookmark or so on, so pay attention. Eventually this could be quite useful. Same about here, so eventually you can cut off these parts and use as a referral eventually till you buy all the models. Could be an idea. So let's see something quite intriguing about the contents in this box. First thing to show is that there are 3 of the same sprues, so here I kept one unfinished because I decided to build a paint one so that it's complete, as you can see. Obviously the painting it's my choices, so you can paint as you want and so on, it's up to you. And eventually you can arm with the whip or a simple blade like this, it's up to you. And I show you anyway a lot of things later so that you can understand step by step. But I prepared also an unfinished model that it's in progressive. So here we can analyze a lot of things. First of all, we can detach the parts and we can decide if we want to magnetize about this part or simply glue. Sincerely, I prefer to glue because I don't find them really quite useful otherwise. But eventually you can try another thing, so it's to duplicate this cloning and then magnetize so that you can simply change the way that you have, for example, the part about the whips in part of arms, or eventually the blades as you prefer. Another thing to notice is that you can eventually magnetize the heads themselves because you have 3 heads available, otherwise better you have 4 options, as you can see, so you can decide how you want to personalize. It's up to you. You can eventually magnetize also this part of the arms of these legs because it's eventually possible. And another thing that it's really quite important is that if you don't glue this part, so you take the tail and this upper part of the model separately, eventually this could be a nice character spider, so that could be interesting. Instead, this that is the tail could be nicely combined with the Scorpex. For example, here the Scorpex Lord that it's perfect suited to be put, so it's really quite nice. About the Destroyers ones, it's a bit small, so it's not so great, but you could eventually create an official eventually like this or so on, so it's not bad at all. And we can analyze, for example, having the option that comes from the part of the Indomitus here with this part that comes from this. We can find that we can simply modify and change the options, so it's really quite useful about. So quite nice in my opinion to create a Lord that could be a variant. So it's something that you could take as option, so you could eventually create the Scorpex and then having also the Camp Spiders. So it could be an interesting part to eventually create a particular model, so have a sort of leader in the spiders here, the Wraiths, and then having a spider aside, and quite interesting option about. So you could have quite a lot of fun using such type of model eventually. Ideas. It's not something that you must do, but it's intriguing to do eventually. Here I wanted to show you the 2 Canoptek Wraiths available. The older one, the metal one, and the newer one here, the plastic. Sincerely, I appreciate much more this one, but I love both the concepts. Here we have this Canoptek Wraith that it's an Necron, really one, an elite one with a tail. Here we have more like a Canoptek, so a style of related about the spider and so on, with the tail, and it's really quite intriguing. Are 2 different ways to approach. Here you see some damages because I wanted to create a project some time ago and I haven't finished it, but I'll recover it quite soon, so not bad. And really here we can see how much the difference is, but how beautiful they are both of them. So not bad, and sincerely much better this one, but this, the other one, has a charm that is still quite amazing. So let's start with the tail. Something to say about the tail. When you go to polish the part about the mod lines, you have to pay attention because you have also to polish in the middle of these spirals. So pay attention about this, and remember that even if I said that all the sprues were equal, about the tail we have technically two different modes of the tail. This one that it's the one that we can see here, so it's with the basing part, so you can simply put, and it's really quite intriguing, this positioning, so I quite appreciate. And the other one is instead in this way, so that it creates this type of arcs. So pay attention about, because there is a little difference, but at the end it's only one of the two models that it's like this, and I quite appreciate this, so it's up to you decide about. And if you go to see about how you can position then the part about the upper part, remember that you can change the positioning up or down based on how you want to position in the model, based on if you want to point with the gun under the model, so that it's in this way, or you can make it in a more aggressive way, so point it upper and then incline this part down better eventually. So you can decide how you want to prepare the models based on how you want to position them, so it's quite intriguing that way. Then it's time to prepare the main body. Then let's talk about the main body, particularly about the upper part of the body here. So we can glue these together and then make that we can put the magnet inside here so that we can magnetize the arms, so it's an option. But you have to pay attention more about this, that it's the bottom part, because remember that you have a weapon. I'll show you later how here you can magnetize this one, but still about putting, you could use the mechanical way, so that as I done, so that you could put and remove without any problem, or you could put a magnet inside here so that you can add then a magnet here and then make that it's much better in position, or you could add magnet here and here and on these two parts, so that you can simply add and remove all the module together. Otherwise there is another option, and it's to use these two arms that you can put these together, and in here and obviously in the respective part here you can magnetize, so that you could simply use this trick so that you can leave these arms here inside and then remove and put the module together. So it's an option that you could consider, because it's in a way something intriguing. It's that you decide how you want to do, because it's an option that it's based on your preferences, but I prefer the mechanically, but it's not necessarily the best. It's up to you, because anyway I use for sure only one single shooting weapon if I need, and eventually I can add if I should use them or not, so it's not a problem itself. And then I prepare the external skeleton, so the upper part here from the model. And here we have a step where I follow a different procedure compared to the one about the instruction, because the instructions will say to put this external skeleton together with the relative section and then glue everything together. But I find it really quite troublesome then to glue and put everything correctly. So I decided instead to glue these parts together and instead prepare the exoskeleton separately. Eventually you can glue, or you can simply make that it's mechanical position, so it's not a problem, it's up to you, and then put on the mod itself. The advantage is that you can paint better, so without any problem, and decide how to treat this part, because you can see that here we have quite a lot of detail exposed, so eventually you could think to prepare eventually one side, another one here, and so prepare maybe some pieces or so on, so you can personalize quite much better in my opinion. So it's up to you decide how you want to do everything, because it's something that it's really about how you are going to be better doing. It's simply a preferences about this and how you want to think, because for example if you want to tilt this part so that you could create something different as position and so on, could be an option. So it's something that it's based on what you prefer as doing. Remember also to add this piece here, that is this one, to here the external armor, so that it's to combine. So simple, but to remember. And now it's time to start to prepare about the legs other than the forearms themselves. And about here, I suggest if you want to magnetize the tail itself, to do this before to glue the parts so that you can manipulate the main body without any problem, but it's up to you if you want. Otherwise, you can simply then adjust the position once that you prepare everything based on the position that you want. Same for the head itself, so not a problem about this. And remember that if you're interested instead about using leaves like a spider, eventually you could think about repositioning this part of the legs in the back and use this stabilizer in the middle so that it's much better as spider, or you can use like this if you really want and simply magnetize and use. It's based on how you perceive and you want to prepare everything, not quite a problem. So let's start to prepare the legs themselves, and then you have to decide to magnetize or glue them. But even if you can mechanically keep in position, I suggest you then to glue, because otherwise they will not be so great. Because they can stay, but they're really quite weak to the movement. We can say like this. So let's go. And now it's time for the forearms. Here are some things to say. First of all, these are quite delicate on the sprue, because there are quite a lot of little thin details. Moreover, this part about the forearms with this cable that it's really quite delicate, so pay attention when you go to remove this part, and moreover to polish here, so it's something that you have to pay attention. Remember that you have two options of weapons, so the blade one here and the whip, but you can only put one of those inside. So in this case, I suggest you eventually to think about or only one of them, or to try to magnetize, but it's really quite thin, and so it's not the best idea in my opinion. So it's better to decide if you want to have some of them. Eventually you could do as I made, so for example have the model that I built, so that it is with each of these with one of the whip and one blade, but symmetrical one. So I can decide with the third one to add them in the way that they have or two whips or two blades. I make the two blades because sincerely I prefer, and it's really quite nice in such a way, because it lets you decide how to develop. In the case that you have more of such models, so that you create these 3 models each unit, you could eventually try to make double, so that you can try eventually to distinguish each of these units based on the equipment. So it could be eventually interesting. So you can really try to see this type of personalization as a sort of starting point, and then develop based on your needing. Because anyway, it's not a problem to declare that the mod that has a whip they have, or the mod that has double whip or double blades has not at all, or the other side. So it's really quite simple based on what you need. I think that it's really quite intriguing. So it's only about what you really think that it's for you to develop as option. So we can begin to assemble the shooting weapon. We start to combine the central body as we've done for another weapon, so I use that as a referral. And once that you're done, I'll drill the inside and put the magnet. Remember about pay attention about the verse of the magnet. Pay attention because it's quite important. And here I suggest you to start. You can start from the one that you want, so the part of the whip itself or the main body here. It's up to you decide. But still, I suggest you to start from the central body, because it's much better to rivaling and find out. So it's really quite intriguing in that way. Because if you start from here, you have to cut off the cross here and then put the magnet drilling and adjusting. But sincerely, I prefer to do after, because I have the distance perfect aligned, so it's not a problem at all. And remember that you have 2 type of weaponry that you can use, so you have to decide. And about the part related for the arms to use, remember that you can simply decide to use like this, so that you can combine with the main body here, so as I showed you at the beginning, or you can think another alternative, that is to twist here under, so that you could put them on a barricade or so on, and then use them as a sort of additional weapon. That could be nice. So you can really adjust. It's a bit of pity not to use these things eventually, that you are not going to use for the models of the right? But you could use eventually this in the way that you can have additional army to personalize maybe some shiny features or so on, so that it's really quite easy to readjust and so on. It's up to you to decide how you want to use them, but they have anyway quite a lot of potential. So I think that it's really quite nice eventually to think what you need and adjust to that. As magnet, I'm going to use the 242mm ones magnets in Udemy one because they are perfect suited for such position. One thing to notice about the basin, when I received this box as gift, they had the 40mm one as basin. From the 9th edition, the box has been repackaged and they received the 50mm one. So pay attention because if you see myself with this model, it's because I had this built before the 9th edition. So from the 9th edition forward, the models received a different ones for this, but you can eventually personalize your base and so on, or try to buy, for example, these green stuff wood ones, or NDF, everything and so on, and thematize your bases, so create your own ones without any problem. So not to worry too much and simply use this if you want to the basin as an option to make them even better. Otherwise, keep them under, glue maybe another base under it and adjust a bit, or simply redo as you prefer. And then it's time to assemble the models. You can decide to paint before and then assemble. It's up to you decide how you want to do. So one correction about here about details, I said that they were identical, these two, instead they are different anyway, but it's not a problem. The main part about here is the one that is completely identical one. And one thing to say is that anyway, you have eventually a guide. You can see that there is this little tongue here that goes here. So it's really quite simple. You can simply adjust and add so that you can have the main position, so it's perfect, or you can adjust, so using a bit of glue you can reposition the things, change anyway the side and so on. You can decide how you prefer, so it's not a problem. One thing that you can play quite a lot about this, it's the position of the head, because about the head itself, here you have quite a lot of game. You can choose the face itself, so it's not a problem, but if you take the head, we can see that here it doesn't have any guide, so we can change the positioning up, down, left, right, so as you prefer, and adjust everything to your needing. So it's really quite good in such way. It's really nice in my opinion. So here it's only up to you decide how you want to do, so to follow the guide or change even more the options that you can have. So it's one thing that you can have quite a lot of fun to personalize and so on based on your needing. So have your fun. And here you have what remained about the box. So we have the hats that are still useful because you could use them as decoration or like armor plaques or so on, so they've been quite useful. The whips and the blades. Here the amount depends by how you decide to make them on the model. So it's anyway quite nice. The whips are easy useful for other things, so it's not a problem, and also the blade could be really quite useful used in other options. So sincerely, it's up to you decide how you want to appreciate them. Obviously you can add also the part about the shooting weapons. Here again depend about what you can think about, because simply based on what you need you can adapt. Still these things could be really used easily to adapt and create something completely new. So not a bad thing in my opinion, and I like to have more options, because if in the future maybe I want to separate and have multiple units of these wraiths with the head as separation, I can simply use and create units based on the heads. So really quite simple and quite nice. There is also another way to make it that this model could be becoming a spider and having the tail for other function. So we can detach this, making how, okay, you could eventually magnetize this section that is the bottom of the middle one and the upper part of the lower one instead of the base of the tail. It could be an option. And here you can see that we had this hole in here that could be perfect combined with this pin here, so we can have a mechanical attachment. The magnet eventually it's an additional thing, so we can make that simply we can put this so that we have quite a lot of stable connection. But you have to pay attention about one thing. it tends to deteriorate the pins if you do this quite often. So think if you really need about this, but anyway, it could be quite good saving, eventually much more stable than simply magnetized detail, and it's something that could be quite nice. It depends that all on you. So remember that anyway you have quite a less part about the scarabs. So here you have something that you had to replace about here eventually, because it will be remaining here to have the better force. So it's something that you can take note eventually as an additional way to create. And now it's the time to assemble the model. One thing to notice is that in the original that I presented you, I removed the base of the 40mm one so that I would be able to use the updated one that, as I said, comes from the 9th edition updated. So I had the 50mm ones available, so I simply prepared them quite easily. So a bit of Snow Vallejo and a bit of the Grinsta World deepen ink, so that it was really quite simple. I can simply add this glue and it's ready like this. I wanted something fast. Eventually I could then remove and prepare something more articulate, more elaborate, but for now I wanted simply something to have finished. Simply it. About the models here, I simply need to add the carapace like this, so mechanical one. I simply put and it's prepared. And about the shooting weapons, sincerely I leave them detached because I prefer them like this. The models I prefer them without any like this, and see the inserts like this. Prefer the decoration, it's much better in my opinion, so I prefer like this than like this. That it's not bad, but I don't like too much. And the case that I need about playing, not a problem, because if I need 3 of them with or without, I declare them like this. If I need 2 of them that are with, I declare the ones without being the ones that has. And if instead I need that only one, it's ready. So it's perfect, not a problem. And about the part of the which one of the weapon to use, I anyway magnetized, so I simply change really quite easily one. So I really like the as they come, and I'm quite satisfied. Simple but nice. And so here we have the finished model. I sincerely love about them. They are really quite amazing ones. Essentially, I have to thank again my mother about this gift because they're simply wonderful. I love the amount of details that they have and still been quite intriguing. So they are really quite interesting. Obviously, about the base, I can replace them, so it's not a problem for now. And they make you think that they are not enough and you want to swarm the table with them because they are really quite wonderful ones. So nice. Maybe in the future we'll have something more. We'll see. Anyway, really quite amazing models to admire. Really wonderful.
So,
from deynonmod it's everything. I invite you to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell so to receive notification about new video, to comment under here about this video, or if you want to suggest me new videos. So I hope to see you again to the next time.